When exploring how we stand at address anatomically, one of the least helpful approaches is often the idea of this kind of pull the shoulders back at address. So we often look at, say for example, often we use new myths, often replace old myths. So certainly we look at, say, almost anatomically what happens when we kind of pull the shoulders back, often quite aggressively, we kind of retract and almost fix and pinch the shoulder blades together. Many things then happen, say for example through the rib cage, it gets kind of pushed forwards, it gets quite expanded, gets quite extended, and also with them we lose that lovely curve in the thoracic spine, which is what we need to then produce rotation. We need that curve, that form of kyphosis in that thoracic spine to produce rotations. Once again, when shoulder blades are pulled backwards, you get very pinched, very compressed at the back, rib cage gets shoved forwards, we lose that curve, we get quite flat to that thoracic spine, and that then can really then challenge them and influence them how we produce rotation. So a much more helpful, a much more advantageous approach to address is more the idea, can we be wide and long through the clavicle, the collarbone? So to address, when we take that start position, is being very mindful. Can we get width? Can we get length? Can we get that lovely long clavicle, long collarbone without, for example, putting the shoulders backwards? So very much play with this one. Can we start to get longer through the clavicle? Can we get wider through the rib cage without evidently kind of moving those scapula, moving those shoulder blades backwards? So much more wide through the rib cage, wide through the shoulders, wide through the clavicle without that kind of shoulder blade being pulled back. So into our start position, and we're going to start to play with this. Long collarbones, wide clavicle, wide rib cage, wide shoulders without really moving those shoulders back can be a much more helpful way of then producing rotation and movement, for example, through setup into back. So connecting into the hands and arms, often what we can then start to establish is the arms will hang them more to the side of the rib cage of the dress. Often then when they kind of shoulder blades back, we often get quite narrow, quite compressed, almost then quite kind of pinch through those arms in that start position. So again, avoid shoulder blades back, be more mindful of it's wider through the clavicle, longer through the clavicle, and this can be a much more helpful way and a much more advantageous way of then standing at a dress that then allows us to move in the way we like to then move, for example, through our swing.